Hello and welcome to the studio at Hickory Art Co. Today we are going to be making these beautiful belly bands and tags and journaling cards, and I'm going to show you how to build layers. And we will be making our own texture paste, and I will show you how to do that. It is used on all of the cards. And some of them have 6, 7, 8 layers of different mixed media on them. Not that you need to make yours with that many layers, but I wanted to be able to show you different techniques that you can then pull from and make whichever combination you would like. Today is also April 14th, and it is letter L for the hashtag ABC April 2025 collab between Seven Plaza and Crafty by Tony. And I will put their links in the description and you can find out more information. Let's get started and I'll show you how I made these. So we're going to do tags and cards and maybe some belly bands. I'm going to show you how I get this different layered technique. In fact, there are like 7 or 8 layers on this. So we're going to go through that and I'll show you. This is another one I have started. We'll probably finish in the video. Nothing is glued down. But again, this is several different layers. So I'll show you that one in more detail in a little bit. But to get started with, I am using the mini master boards that we had made in our ephemera storage book a couple weeks ago. So I will link the video to this in the description. And if you want to check that out and make some of these, then you can go forward, or you can just skip this layer, or you could put one together right on whatever shape that you cut out. You don't have to have anything special made to begin with. But I'm going to tear 2 of these out to use. I'll do that one, and I'll just do this one. These tear out really nice too. And if you're not familiar with the ephemera storage book, we are building and creating all kinds of things in here. We even did some watercolors. There is a whole playlist of things that are in this book. And the idea of it is that then when you need something, you can just tear it out and it's ready to go, instead of having a bunch of containers around with bits and pieces of things. This just sits on a shelf and is ready to pull out whenever you need something. Okay, so I have some going 2 different ways here. This one I built in the direction that the book was laying vertically, and then this one I turned the book horizontal and built a master board on there. And it is just different pieces of old paper out of, mostly out of books. Actually, this one is a digital. This was an old kid's science book. Some music paper. This was off of a digital. So it's just music books, just little odds and ends of stuff, but I tried to vary the coloration of the paper. So some are very parchmenty and some caramels, and then some more white. And then I did the same thing on here. Some ledgers. This is actually the sewing pattern paper that I use a lot, dictionaries. So if you want to check out how I did these, I will link that video. I'm going to go ahead and get these cut into pieces. I usually like the belly bands to be between 2 and 2.5 inches. So I'm just gonna flip this over so I can see better where my marks are. And I'm just going to do 2 that are 2 1/4, and then that'll just leave me with a little strip that I can then use in clusters or in some of the layering. So I'm going to mark 2 1/4. And again, this is just my preference. You can do whatever size belly band that you like. And 2 1/4. And then that's going to leave me this width of a strip that I can then tear apart and use in clusters or behind things to do some layering. All right, so I'm going to cut that and I'm going to do it on the paper trimmer, and I will be back in a moment. So now I have 2 things that will work for belly bands. You can cut them to whatever length you think you may need for a junk journal. These are measuring the same height that the book was, which is 8 1/4. And then I have this nice little scrappy bit that I can use for clusters. All right, so now I have this piece. And again, this is going this direction. For right now, I'm going to cut it into 3 equal parts. So for this page, that comes to about 2 3/4 that I'm going to cut. And then of course you can make them whatever size you like your journal cards or tags to be. So it's 2 3/4 the whole way across there. Close enough anyway. And when you are cutting through a master board of any size, it is easier if you flip it and put the blade down on the plain side rather than trying to get through this direction, because if you have any little corners that weren't glued down tight, they could get picked up. So just when you go to cut it, turn it upside down, just makes it a little easier. And you wouldn't have to use a paper cutter. I could have, if your master boards aren't real thick, you can lay them down and tear them with the ruler. But if you used a lot of cardstock or they're backed in cardstock, that may not work quite as well as the cutter. Then I'm just going to turn it over and trim any little bits that may be sticking out. And this I'm just going to do kind of rough because I like that rough look of the page that was there. This one I'll just trim down here a little bit. And I don't think I mentioned, I am using a Tombow mono glue stick for the glue stick, and then for the wet glue I use the Beacon 3-in-1. It is by the same brand as the Fabri-Tac, and then I put it into one of the Sugar Belle frosting bottles just because it's easier to squeeze. And I believe I'm going to do one as a tag and then the other 2 as journaling cards, and then we have the belly band. So to get the corners, I have an old credit card that I just snipped the corner off of, and you can do that on all of the corners if you want, just to get the angle, to get several different angles. But I have just this one that I seem to keep using. I'm not sure where the other half of the card got to, but you just line that up against the side here and snip. And then you can, even if you're not using a card, and just snip it off, then you can pick up your piece that came off and put it on here again and snip, or you can just flip over your card, but that way you're getting both of the corners the same. Okay. All right, so tag, and I'm going to punch a hole in that a while so I don't forget that there needs to be a hole and end up putting something over the top. If I do put something over the top, then I will just repunch it. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is show you the first step in the layering that I do on these sometimes. What I'm going to do for the first layer is make my own texture paste. If you have texture paste, by all means, go ahead and use it. If you have gesso, you can use that as well. But I am going to show you how to make it with just 2 simple ingredients at home. And it is made with just any white acrylic paint. I happen to have the matte, which I think does work well. Does not have to be this brand, any acrylic paint. And then a box of baking soda. And this is just generic baking soda. And like I said, you could use gesso or texture paste if you already have a jar of it. The gesso, I don't believe it'll leave a nice matte finish, but it's not going to be as gritty. So I'm just going for a little bit of texture. And I know people are going to freak out, but I don't measure. I could probably get you a recipe if you wanted to make an entire jar of this at a time, but I just am doing a bunch of these. If I was not videoing, I would probably have maybe 15, 20 of these and just do them all at the same time. But I put out 2 squirts of paint there that were maybe the size of a quarter. And then I'm going to do about 1 of that same size in the baking soda. So it's a 2-to-1 basically. But then again, as I'm working with it, if it needs adjusted, then I adjust it. You can add more baking soda if it doesn't feel gritty enough. You can add more paint if it feels like it's too thick and globby and isn't cooperating with what you want it to do. And you do end up getting messy. So I do have a baby wipe handy here because I do just scrape it off here. Also, I did find, and actually I forgot to do it this time, if you put some hand lotion, whatever you normally or typically use on your hands, if you do that right before you get busy in the studio, if you get any ink or stain or paint on your hands, it seems to come off a little bit better. It's when your hands are dry that, especially that ink just gets in there and doesn't want to budge. All right, so I have a little bit here, and I'm sure I'll have to mix another batch up as we go along. I'm going to use some like this straight white, and then I'll show you what I do to age some of it as well. So I'm going to use this little spatula. I have no idea where this came from. You can also use a scraper, and you can also use the credit card. Anything will work. And I'm just going to apply it over the top. How much or how little of the words that you want to show through is up to you. Sorry if it's shaking the camera. Okay. So we're going to do that, and I'll do another one. Let's do one of the belly bands with this. It just adds some depth and texture to your work. It doesn't have to be just for belly bands and tags and cards. You could use it on anything. It would even work like on the cover of a journal. All right, so we'll do that. And then I'm going to mix up a little bit more. And then I'll show you actually two more things that we can do with this. For this one, I'm going to use a stencil, and you could use any stencil. It doesn't have to be this old scrippy writing. It could be anything that you have on hand. It could be a flower, it could be a butterfly, anything that you have. But I'm just going to do this for right now, and I'm just going to start scraping it over the top, kind of pressing it down into the grooves and trying not to slide it while I'm doing that. Although with this, it doesn't really matter that much because it's, you can't read what it says anyway, so, but I don't want it to smear. And I'm not hitting every hole either. I'm just going to carefully lift it off. And we have that. And I am going to get this cleaned off and dry both of the things that we just did, and then I'll show you the last thing. Those are dry. It really doesn't take long at all to dry, I think, because the baking soda is in there. So those are dry. I'm going to set those aside and just show you one more. There's actually a lot of things you can do with texture paste, but I'm going to show you one more today. I'm just going to kind of scrape this back in the middle here. See what I have left. And then I take my coffee spray, which if you've seen any of my other videos, you see I use this a lot. This is just instant coffee that I had put in warm water and dissolved, and it just sits on my desk. And I refill it when I need to. So then all I do with this is get this mixed in, and then your texture paste is not such a bright white. I'll get the credit card back in here and just scrape that together without getting it on that card. Oh, and I did want to mention, like with that stencil, you do want to take that to the sink and get it cleaned up soon, just because of it being paint. The acrylic paint, though, isn't too hard to get off of things. But all right, so now I have this, and I have it toned down because I sprayed it with coffee, and that did make it get a little bit watery. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more of the baking soda just to get it a little more gritty, more of a paste. And I'm just going to do the same thing that I did on the other ones and just scrape it. I don't want to cover up everything that's there because some of that vintage paper is really cool looking. I do see I need to glue a little flappy down there then. And then we'll do this a little bit on this belly band. Okay, so we have that and that. All right, so I'm going to dry those and get this cleaned up. So that is 2 layers that we have now. So we have the book pages that made the collage underneath here, the mini masterboards. Then we did the texture paste. So I did that either by scraping it on, using a stencil, adding coffee dye to it. So you could choose any of those options. Then a third layer could be the coffee spritz. So let's just take this one here in the middle, and I'm going to spritz and tone down that white a little bit. And when I spritz, I try to just get some to drip out so I can make some puddles. And we'll do that to this belly band over here that's so stark white. Oops, that one I completely missed. Okay. So then I hold the heat gun on that and get that to dry, and then I will probably do a second coat. When I am doing the puddles, I tend to hold the heat tool from the side and try and get, that helps to get those like watermarks or coffee rings. You'll get a darker jaggedy edge around. All right, so they got a nice aged effect. You can see like the coffee drips and runs. And if you're working on something like that and it starts to curl, you can turn it over and dry it from the back and just kind of bend it back on itself in the opposite direction that it's curling. And you can usually get them to lay pretty flat again. All right, so I'm gonna move those out of the way. And then I have this one. That feels good and dry. I am gonna try and squirt this just a little bit over the top and see what happens. I've not squirted over top of the stenciled part before, but I think it looks like it's going to be fine. I won't want to saturate it too much because I don't want it to reactivate and start to run, but all right, I think that came out nice. It just knocked that white back a little bit. All right, so then the next one, I'm going to scoot this out of the way. And I'm going to make a mess again on the desk. Some of you, if you watched a video I did not too long ago that was on using distressed digitals, I used some of this. Sorry, it is Folk Art Watercolor Gels, Gelz. And this is the color Blue Lagoon. So I'm just gonna, again, use a little bit of the coffee dye. You can get in here with a paintbrush, or I just had this handy. And just get it. You can use water too. I just use the coffee, so there's already kind of an aged look in there. If you don't want that, just use the plain water. Okay, so then I'm just going to dip these in here. Let's see what we get. Okay, lay that one to the side and do this one. Okay. I think that is good. Now I have some of that left. So I have just a scrap piece of, well, it's going to be a scrap piece of, it's just a very thin cardstock. I'm just gonna put that down on here and save this. And then when this is nice and full, I will cut this into tags or something and do something with it. Okay, so I'm going to wipe this up, and then I'm going to use one of the inks. What do I have here? Vintage Photo. We'll just put this one down. Again, I'm using coffee. You can use water. You don't really have to stir that. And let's get this back in. Actually, well, I want to dry this blue first before I go dipping anymore. All right, actually, I'm not going to dip that side because this is a belly band and getting glued. I did it again, and getting glued down, so it's not going to matter. All right, so I'm going to dip this now in the Vintage Photo. And again, I'm just trying to knock back some of that stark white. If you like the look of that, then by all means, leave it be. But I'm going for more of a vintage grungy look. If you want a brighter, more vibrant look, then you would not have to do that part. Hope everyone's doing well today. Thank everybody who's been watching my videos and subscribing. I'm enjoying doing the ABC April collaboration between Seven Plaza and Crafty by Tony. All right, I think that looks good. And I don't really have much left to put back on this paper, but we'll just do it one time. There's more there than I thought. Okay. We have several different layers on here now. So we're going to go for what will be the fourth layer. And again, you don't have to do all of these. I just want to show you some different techniques, and then you can pick and choose which ones you like and build your layers from there. We have, and I'm not going to do all these the whole way to the end of embellishing, but I will take one or two of them that far. But the next thing that I do is that stencil that I seem to use all the time. This one that has the fake script on it. I like to stencil something on. I'm not going to do the one that obviously has the textured writing already on it, but I'll pick one or two of these and stencil some writing over the background or onto the background that we already have, and show you what that looks like. It does not have to be a stencil that has the old script on it. It can be leaves. It could be any kind of a background stamp that you have, or stencil that you have, or stamp, but we're going to stamp in a little bit. So first I'm going to use this just to stencil as an option. And for that, I'm going to use this dry erase brush that I had gotten from the Dollar Tree. Works pretty nice on stencils. You can, what color do I want? I'm going to do ground espresso. And again, I'm going to make a mess on here. You can take your dry brush and apply it from here. That works also. But it can be a little hard on your on the ink pads, because this is soft, but also kind of stiff, that if you don't want that to start to fray around the edges, then I do it this way. And you can even add a little bit of the coffee to it. This works nice for getting in the tiny spaces on this stencil. I'm going to make it a little darker. And that's looking funny when I add the coffee to it, because this is actually a permanent ink I picked up by mistake. It's all right. I think that is good. Okay, I'm going to get it off of my desk here though. And for this one, I'm going to go a little different and do weathered wood, it's called. And I'm just going to use the same, oops, need a stencil. So I'm going to use weathered wood, and then I'm just using the same dry brush. I'm not switching out for colors. See how that's good. It's just faded into the background, which is what we want. Sorry if it's shaking the camera. All right, so that looks nice. It just adds just a little bit into the background. You can't make out what it says, but you know that there is some writing there. This glass top is getting quite the workout today. Okay. So there we are with that. I'm going to clean this off and get rid of some of this on my hands. Now I have switched over to these two, and I'm going to take a background stamp that I had purchased at Michael's. And I'm just going to stamp, I don't know what I'm going to do with that one yet, but I'm going to stamp the belly band with the weathered wood. So I'll get this stamp loaded up, and I'm going to get that placed on here just randomly, and it can go right off the edges. And then I will do it another time or two and be right back. Okay, so we have that, which looks really nice. And if I was, again, doing this not on camera, I would be doing a whole bunch at one time. I wouldn't be dragging all of this out for a couple of tags or journaling cards. I would be mass making and doing a whole bunch at one time. All right, so then we have, I don't think I'm gonna put anything yet over top of this one till we get to gluing some things down. This one, I'm going to, this one I have this crackle stamp. It was actually in a bundle of stuff from one of the thrift stores that I picked up. It says crackled background 3024G, and it's a Delta brand. I have no idea if it's still around or how old it is, but it makes a really neat crackled background. And I'm going to use black, so I will get that loaded up. And then I'm just going to randomly put that on, and I'm going to go even at an angle so I don't get any straight edges from the edge of the stamp. And I'll load it up again. And then that added that crackle to that. Looks nice over the paint too. So we are on layer, I don't know, 4 or 5. We have the old book page collage, the masterboard. We have the texture paste that we made. We coffee spritzed or we dip dyed, and then we stenciled or we stamped. So now we're going to get on to gluing some things, and here's the one that I had made previously. I glued on 2 fussy cuts, but I layered those as well. And then I added some texture. So we have some sewing machine or sewing pattern paper at the back, and then this is netting, like from a netting bag. I'm not sure what it was from, but it's like what oranges or something would come in. And then I added a number, and then the twine. And I didn't do anything to the back of this one, but if this was going in a journal, I would put coffee dyed paper back here, just a piece of it, so there's some journaling space. And the same thing goes for all of these except for the belly bands, which are going to get glued down. But for the journaling cards and the tags, I would add either back it on a piece of coffee dyed paper or tear around a piece of coffee dyed paper and put it here. Or if you want something sturdier, you can even back it with like a cardstock, something that you want. And then that leaves room for people to actually journal on it. But what we're loading up in the front, like what we did here, I tend not to do on the back because these most likely will get slid into a pocket. and you don't want stuff piled up on the top and stuff piled up in the back. It's better if it can slide in and out with just some flat things on the back. If you were paper clipping it in, that would be something different. Than you could do go to town on both sides. All right, so I'm just going to pick 2 of these and take them to the end on the video, and then I will finish the rest of them and show you at the end what I have. I went through my stash of fussy cuts and numbers and people and all kinds of things and my textures and pulled some stuff to apply to these to finish a couple of them off, and then I will show you all of them at the end. So for this next one, I have these gentlemen that I found in a yearbook. They're a really good resource. Sometimes you can find them fairly cheap. I've seen them anywhere from $6 or $7 up to $30 or $40. And I believe the last 1 or 2 that I bought were $7, and then one was $8.50. But they're fun just to go through, and then I cut some things out of there. This was actually and if you turn to the very back of the yearbooks, they have businesses that send their congratulations to the seniors, and a lot of the businesses had pictures, and I think this was from like 1951. So I'm going to put that on here, and then I'm going to put a piece of this dressmaker paper though behind it first, just to layer it and anchor it a little bit. So I will put that down. I'm going to use my glue stick because this is just this real thin paper, but I do find that the wet glue does work better with the baking soda texture paste that we made. Just something to keep in mind. But this really thin sewing pattern paper is going to stay down there no problem. All right, so I'm going to put that there next. And actually, I want that up a little further. And then I will trim around it. Put that there next, but I don't think I inked around it. And I'm going to use the Beacon 3-in-1 glue for this. And at the end, then I will ink the whole way around to blend that all together. And we can cut this off. And again, I'm not going to take the time today to finish the tags or the journaling cards, but you would definitely want to put something back there. And then this, I'm just going to stick this on yet and then call this one done. All right, we'll put that right in there. So this one is done, and we ended up with 3 layers on top of everything else that we did. So we have the sewing pattern paper, the graphic from the people, and then the little number. And we'll put a little bit more glue behind there then. And the next one, this is this really cool one that I did the crackle stamp over top of the Water Gelz Blue Lagoon. This is out of my employee identification card kit. If you're interested in anything like that, check that out on the Covey shop. And I'm going to layer her on here. I'm going to put this piece of lace. This is some really old lace that actually came off of an old, I believe it was an old belt. It was falling apart when I found it. It was in a like an antique shop that has a little bit of everything, and I think it was like $6 or something like that. So it's very old. So I just took a little piece off of that, and I'm going to glue that down here, and then I'm going to put her here and just wrap that around to the other side. Okay, I backed this with some old coffee dyed paper. And since I'm going to be wrapping that around, I wanted that to be done first. So now I'm going to put her on here. I'll pull the lace over this way just a little bit. So just want a little bit more of that showing. And I'll have to hold this for just a little bit. Then I glued down the word employee, and now I'm going to glue down this date. I inked around both of them. And now I'm going to round the corners on this journal card. You would not have to do this, or you can put something around there like a dime or a nickel and trace around it and do it by hand. Or you can just cut it and have angled corners. Okay, so I'm going to call that one done as well. Because we did all this work on this, I hate to put too much on these things, so I don't really cover them with a whole lot. But I think that one got nice. And then this came around the back, and you could coffee spray or put another little stamping or something down there yet to finish that one off. So the last one, I had this card that I had done earlier, and it was done exactly the same way as the rest. Then I glued this on, and then I found her in a yearbook as well. So I'm going to glue her on there. And then I have the, I thought she should have some music, so I'm going to stick some music on here somewhere, and I need to ground her feet. So I'm going to probably put that number down, get her on here, get some flowers on here, and then I have one or two sayings to pick from. All right, I got the number glued down, and I'm going to finish the rest of this, and I'll probably just put it on double speed, but you'll still see me doing it. I just won't be saying anything. Okay, so this one turned out nice then too. She is layered as well. Besides all the stuff we did for the background, I then anchored her with this piece behind her, and then anchored her feet or grounded her with the number here. And then I layered some music paper and then just some flowers, and then gave her the little saying. And that's something that you can do with some of your old books that you have that are meant for junk journaling. You can just sit in the evenings while you're watching TV and cut out some phrases. I have some of them here just stored in this case, and they're nice just to pull when you need some. Then the tag I finished by putting a little piece of twine there. So we have that. This one had the sewing pattern paper behind it. So don't be afraid to add some texture in with your embellishments as well. We did get some texture with the texture paste that we made, but then I also added other things, like here on this one we have the lace. This one has a piece of coffee dyed paper behind the butterfly, and then it has some lace on the embellishment there on the little cluster. I think I showed you that one at the beginning. That has the netting and the sewing paper. Then I did this one off camera. We had made the belly band up to a certain point, and then I added the little owl and the little statement. And then this was, I think, out of the specimen notes kit. But then behind him, and then down here, I have a piece of bookbinding, like a netting. It comes out when you take a book apart. It's usually behind the spine of the really old books, that it was there to hold it together. And then on this one, this got really cool, so I didn't want to cover a whole lot up, but I did put a piece of like lace. It was actually this seam binding. I got it at the thrift store in their little like sewing notions part. It was 50 cents, originally 42. So I got that, and then I put that down along the bottom here. This old shoe was from the employee's identification kit, and then I added a stamp behind there just to give it a little pop of color, and then had finished the back of that one. I used 2 of the mini masterboards today, and then one when I had made the ones off camera. So 3 mini masterboard pages got us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the tags and journal cards and belly bands. So let me know in the comments which is your favorite. And just remember, you do not have to pile all this stuff on. I was just giving you some different ideas of techniques that you can use, starting with the mini masterboards, the texture paste, coffee, the dip dye, the stencils, the stamps, and you can just build up, and it provides depth on your journaling embellishments, and it adds some texture. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. I had fun making these today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and that way you will be notified when I upload a new video. And I thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time.